Good morning everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar today. My name is Emma Wall and I'm the Events Coordinator at Connecting Up. For those of you who don't know, Connecting Up is a not-for-profit organisation whose aim is to strengthen the non-profit and community sector in Australia by providing a variety of information, products, resources and programs, especially in the field of technology, social media, marketing and communications. Our webinar today will be presented by Ryan Jones from Connecting Up, who will provide an introduction to Microsoft Office 365. The first half of today's presentation will provide an overview of Office 365, then a live demonstration. Questions will be taken between the overview and demonstration and at the end of the demonstration. If you have a question, please type it in the question box on your webinar panel. We have over 160 people registered for this webinar. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, but please be aware we may not be able to get to every single one, but we'll do our best. I would now like to hand the webinar over to Ryan.
Thanks Emma, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you're all really excited to see what Office 365 can do. A lot of this is going to be live demonstration. We'll take some questions at the end of the slides, but during the demonstration, if you see something that you want to quickly get a bit more information on, sing out and we'll see what we can do. So the slides you can see on the screen now kind of look a bit like PowerPoint slides, and that's really funny because they are. Today I'm actually presenting from Office 365 from a web browser. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail later on, but I guess the first thing that everybody always asks us about Office 365 is what is it? Office 365 is essentially Microsoft Office in the cloud. The version that we're talking about today doesn't have anything to do with the retail version that you'd buy from Harvey Norman or JB Hi-Fi or something like that. The version that Microsoft are donating through their donation program is the enterprise version, which is really exciting, I think, because it doesn't just give you online versions of Microsoft Office, but it gives you a whole range of really powerful server tools in the background. Things like email, calendaring, shared files, all kinds of different things that we're about to show you. So I guess, why would we want Microsoft Office in the cloud? There are a lot of benefits to cloud software, and I'm sure that a lot of people on the webinar are familiar with this, but the three biggest ones I wanted to focus on are flexibility. We get a lot of questions from organizations that they want to do something as simple as add another volunteer to their server, or one more employee, or whatever it is. And that's often the user that breaks the server. So using cloud software has the ability to give you the flexibility to add users and scale without needing to upgrade that old server that you've got sitting out the back. You also get an added level of reliability. So Microsoft Office 365 is hosted in Microsoft data centers. There's guaranteed service, multiple data centers now, and automated backups, which keeps everything running smoothly. And the other thing is that it's always up to date. Microsoft have only just done an update actually to do some interface tweaks, but you often with a in-house server it's a pretty big capital project to upgrade a server. So all of this really means that we've got a bit of extra peace of mind, which is exactly what we want. So why would we put Office in the cloud? Well, it gives us access to our data wherever we want it. You can see there on the slide it's across a whole range of different devices. It gives centralized document storage for your organization, some really good automated backups, and you don't need to run your own servers. Now, I'm not sure if anybody on the webinar got to join us late last year for our Office 365 roadshows we did across Australia and New Zealand. If you are in Adelaide and Perth and you didn't get to one, we have something really cool coming to you shortly. but I was on the road for pretty much 2 weeks, and life goes on in the office, and found it really useful to be able to access my files on my OneDrive from my mobile phone, edit them and email them to my colleagues without having any issues whatsoever. So you get a lot more control over it. Accessing your data wherever you want it also gives you the ability to pick up on a document where you left off, which is really important if you've got massive files. And the other thing we've got here, and we'll do some shared document management in a minute, but the example I always use, because it's the one that nonprofits most, we can all relate to the grant application. And I'm sure that everybody on this webinar is really organised with their grant applications, and they always get them in far, far before the deadline. But sometimes at Connecting Up, we have to finish our grant applications the day before they're due, or the day that they are due. And before Office 365, this typically involved having somebody cut the document into sections, email it out to the people that needed to work on those sections, then those people email it back and somebody puts it back together. With Office 365, we can all access that file at the same time, and I'll show you how that works and how we don't trip over ourselves in a minute, but it means that we don't have that problem of putting it back in at the end, and we have a single file that we know is accurate and we can work from. So what is Office 365 outside of that? It's essentially Microsoft Office. You can see over here, it's for PC users, it's Office 2013. For Mac users, it's Office 2011. Plus, you get all of these other things that you wouldn't necessarily usually get with Office. So business class email with a hosted Exchange server from Microsoft. You get file sharing using a OneDrive. That's now unlimited file storage. You get high definition video conferencing through Microsoft Link. You get technical support. You get uptime that I was talking about before in terms of reliability. You get pretty simple management of it, and you can access your files anywhere. You can use mobile apps. You can use a range of different tools to access it. With the E1 plan, and I'm going to look at the plans in just a sec, it only comes with web versions of Microsoft Office, which is what we'll do a lot of demonstrations on today. They're really powerful, but it also means that you can interface Office 2010 and Office 2013 with Office 365 to still be able to access those files and edit things just like you usually would on your computer. Now, there's a few different plans available. You can see on this chart, hopefully it's clear, but we'll send out these slides after the webinar. Microsoft are making 2 different plans available via donation. One is Office 365 Small Business for Nonprofits, and one is Office 365 Enterprise E1 for nonprofits. And so you can see there are a couple of differences. One of the notable ones between the 2 donation ones is Active Directory integration. So if you know that you need Active Directory, then E1 is a better plan for you. The other critical thing here is that Small Business for Nonprofits has a limitation of 25 users. Enterprise E1 has no limitation on the number of users that you can use under the donation program. So for most organisations, just to allow you to scale in the future, E1 is potentially a better plan for you. Now, if you need Office for your computer as well, then you've got a couple of different options here. Office 365 Small Business Premium for Nonprofits is available, and it's very similar to Small Business for Nonprofits, except that you get the desktop applications. And then there's the E3 Enterprise plan, which is a bit more expensive, but also includes a number of other features and obviously the desktop applications. A lot of the organisations that we work with, us included, would use the E1 plan and use their existing Office licenses. So we have a range of users in our office. All of us are on Office 2013 now. We don't have to go out and buy new licenses. We don't have to worry about those kind of things. We just use our existing 2013 licenses. You can use 2010 as well. You don't get quite the same functionality, but you get most of it. And we also have Mac users in the office that use Office 2011 for Mac and interface with Office 365 without any problems. Microsoft have done a really good job recently of improving that Mac compatibility as well. So that's a basic rundown of the plans and what it is. I think that the best way to accurately demonstrate what it is to show you. So we'll go into the demo in just a sec after some questions. But to get it, all you need to do is go onto the Microsoft website, the link that's on the screen now, microsoft.com/Office365 nonprofits. You can register your organisation and you'll automatically get set up for an E3 trial while we validate that you are a nonprofit, and then away you go. So I might pause there for a couple of quick questions if we've got any.
Thanks, Ryan. We've got a couple of questions. So the first one is, what about Dynamics CRM?
Dynamics CRM isn't part of Office 365, but it is definitely something that is available in the cloud. There are a few different options there. What I'd probably recommend that you do is jump on our website and have a look at our suppliers directory, and our partner Info Exchange also offers some Dynamics CRM services.
Okay, and another one, will Publisher be available on the Mac version if we're using 365?
That's a tricky one. Publisher's never been available on the Mac as far as I know, and so there is a new version of Office. I've been told, well, I've read articles that it'll probably be out by the end of the year, but I haven't seen anything that suggests that Publisher might be included in it. So I can't predict the future, but I'm just not sure, I'm sorry.
Okay, we've just got a few more. What about E1 with email archiving feature?
There is some functionality in E1 for email archiving, but that's pretty much to pull down the PST file. You can't archive it on Office 365. If that's a functionality you really need, then that's probably going to require the E3 plan.
Okay, so we'll just take 3 more questions. Does it interface with Salesforce?
That one there I don't know. It does interface with a lot of different solutions, and Microsoft are partnering with Salesforce on a few different things. Depending on what integration you need with Salesforce, that might be an implementation question, or it might be something customized that you'll have to organize.
Okay, New Zealand users usually access Microsoft donations through TechSoup. Do they still go direct?
For your normal Microsoft donations, you would go through TechSoup. For Office 365, you need to go through the Microsoft URL. And what basically happens there is Microsoft come back to TechSoup and say, is this organisation a non-profit? We have a look at it and we validate you and go from there.
Okay, we'll just take one more question. We'll take further questions at the end of the presentation because we're getting a lot through here. We have to store data within Australia. Where does Office 365 store the data?
I probably should have opened with that one because it's a very common question. To date, it's been in Singapore in the main, but Microsoft announced late last year that they would be moving all of their Australian customers to their new data center in, I think it's Melbourne. They've got a couple of new ones, but I think Office 365 will be in Melbourne exclusively. So that will be coming, I think as of March, everyone will be in there. But anyone who is stored in Singapore who is an Australian customer will get an opportunity to move over to Australia at a later date. Alright, so I said that this looks kind of like, a web browser, and that's because it is. So you can see now that I'm in Internet Explorer. I can close my PowerPoint presentation, and this is Office 365. So this, in this case, is my OneDrive. So I can store my personal files in my OneDrive, and there are sync tools now available for Windows and Mac to enable you to sync your OneDrive for Business files onto your hard drive, much the same way as you would use your personal OneDrive or Dropbox or things like that. Now I can share my OneDrive files with my colleagues, I can edit files out of OneDrive, I can even create them. So I'm going to go into my Office 365 webinar folder because I've got some things that I prepared earlier. And what we might start with is, we might start by having a look at a file I put together yesterday. And so this is Word Online. And so you can see here that my document kind of looks like a Word document. And this is one of the great things about Office 365, I think. There's a big degree of familiarity here. So the interface is similar to Word 2013, and it's similar to Microsoft. If you use Outlook.com, if you use OneDrive for personal storage, it's all very familiar, which makes it easier for your users to jump on board. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit in Word Online, just to show you some of the functionality that you can get in your web browser, which is great if you need to borrow a computer or whatever you need to do. Now you can see up here, Nathan Allington is also editing my document. And Nathan is a new colleague of mine, and he's giving me a hand today to demonstrate the editing functionality of Word Online. So what we have here is very similar menu interface to Word 2013. There are a couple of differences, and a lot of them wouldn't be noticed in a normal document, but there might be some changes that power users will notice. There's a couple of more complicated functions that have been left out of Word Online, but that's okay because we'll get to that in a sec. But we can see here that I can edit this to my heart's content, and might see if Nathan can make some edits for us and show us what's going on. Let's see how we can work on it together for grant applications. But we've still got our spell check, we've still got our paragraph styles. You can see here I've used a heading 1 for my top heading. So Nathan's provided me with some feedback here that we need a meme. I'm not sure about that, but Nathan loves memes, so that's okay. We'll put one in and we'll see how it looks. Now, of course, you can still use your track changes to see what your colleagues are doing. You can still put comments in, and they become a bit more powerful because they can become discussions. So I can post a comment there that I don't think that's right, Nathan, and we can turn that into a chat thread, or we can just mark it as done and check it off. But, you know, there's something about this. I just prefer to work in the desktop version. So I can click this button up here that says Open in Word. Hey, and Nathan's added his meme, but that's okay. We're going to have a look at that document in Word now. So basically what Microsoft have done is, because I've got Office 2013 on my computer, it pulls that file down to my computer, and here it is. I've opened this file from OneDrive. Here's my comment. Here's my file. Not sure why that image is swapped over. There's Mathan's meme. But I still know that Mathan's editing this document. I can still do live document editing. And what we can see here is there's a little button here that says updates are available. So what that tells me is that Mathan has edited that paragraph. And if I click the update, there you go, it'll sync it up. And so the update there was, Mathan doesn't like my comment about we don't need a meme. But that's okay, we have one now. So again, we still have that collaborative editing. If Mathan were to try and edit the second paragraph of this document, Word would basically lock me out of that paragraph, which means that I can't go in there and overwrite what he's trying to write at the same time. Once he has finished with that paragraph, it basically checks him out of the paragraph and makes it available to me, so I can go in and make edits afterwards. But we get that functionality of being able to know where our colleagues are in the document, know what they're editing without tripping over each other. Now, for those of you who are interested in versioning, yes, there are versioning functions in Office 365. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this document, and it's synced it up to OneDrive, and now I'm going to close it. And if I go back to Word Online and I want to leave this file, I'm going to go back to my OneDrive. And back to my OneDrive. Here's my Office 365 webinar folder. And I can go I get previews, and I get this great little thing here called version history. And I can see here that Mathan made a couple of edits today, and I can see the size of the different versions of the files. But, you know, I actually just want to roll back to my original version. So I can open that original version and just check it. And it's going to open in my Word. But that's the one that I want, and I can click the little menu button next to it and restore it to that version. I usually can, but I can't today, probably because I've just opened it. So because I've opened it in Word on the desktop, I can compare it to the old version if I want to. I'm just going to restore it because I know that I want to restore it, and that's gone well. All right. So what if I needed a new file? I'm going to open a new file. One thing that we like to try in these demos is a survey. So I'm going to start a new file, and it's going to be an Excel survey, and I'm going to call it demonstration survey, and that file will automatically be stored in my OneDrive, and I can choose which of my colleagues that I want to share that with later on. Now, when you create a survey in Excel Online, it gives you a step-by-step process to follow through to create the survey. But you get a couple of extra things which are fantastic. So here we go, we're going to edit our survey. And the first question is going to be, what is your name? And I can choose what my responses are going to be. Yeah, I want to require that, and I don't need a default answer for this. So I'm going to add that one. I can add another question. "365. Yes or no. They're required, and the default answer is going to be yes. Done. Okay. Easy. So I'll save that and view it. And in the background there you can see Microsoft Office is adding my headings and making it all ready to go. And this is what my survey looks like when I send it out. So what is my name? My name is Ryan. Am I interested in Office 365? Yes. And I click Submit. And you can see over here in the background that it's been added straight away. So if I close this, my name is already in there. Am I interested in Office 365? Yes. So if I was doing a bigger survey out to my members, I might want to use this so that I get real-time data on what they're feeding back to us, and I can instantly analyze it in Excel. And I'm not tied to Excel Online. Just like I did in Word, I can click the Open in Excel button and I can get the big Excel spreadsheet up, and I might want to bring in pivot tables or whatever it might be, but I can start graphing this and I can start producing data from this. I actually worked with an organisation in South Australia last year who were very interested in using this functionality just as a membership sign up. So they could put this form on their website and they could let their members sign up, and they would automatically get it in a spreadsheet. So the uses can go beyond just a survey, but give you that immediate feedback. And in real time, if you kept this open on your desktop and sent it out to your members, you would see the responses coming in real time as people were answering. All right, so that is Excel Online in a nutshell. I guess the thing I'm trying to really reinforce here is, if you are familiar with a relatively new version of Microsoft Office, and hopefully by now everyone is on at least Office 2010, if not Office 2013, a lot of this will be familiar. Some of you might find that you need to use the desktop version as well, some of you won't. If you're using Outlook for your email now, you can still use the desktop Outlook client to connect to Office 365, or you can click on Outlook in Office 365 and you can access via webmail, which is really useful if you need to access your email from a web cafe or something. So you can see here my email is very interesting today, but again it looks like Outlook.com. It looks very similar to Office 2013, and this is the thing that yeah, we really want to reinforce. I can write a new email and it looks like a normal email, and I can pull in data from my colleagues. So I can start to type in Nathan, and you can see Nathan's come up here. You can see Daniel. We've got our pictures in there, so I see Nathan's smiley face when I want to send him an email, which is great. It also means that I don't get confused between Nathan and Marcus, which is really useful. It gives me that direct feedback. Now, I'm not sure whether everybody is doing this already on the call, but I've had a few requests to go over the shared calendaring, because not everyone is aware that with Exchange, you actually, which is Microsoft's email server, you can actually do shared calendars. Now, that's not a feature that's specific to Office 365. If you've already got an Exchange server in your organization, you should already be able to do this. Just depends on how you configure everything. But you can see here is my calendar. It's
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay, sorry everyone, Ryan's audio has just cut out, so we're just playing with the technical side of things behind the scenes here, so he'll be back on air in just a moment.
okay. Is that working better now? Beautiful. All right. Now, and you thought you'd all got rid of me. All right, let's give this another go. Apparently my microphone decided it wanted a holiday. It's fair enough. I guess we all want a holiday. So anyway, shared calendars. Now, I want to create a meeting with my colleagues. You can see here I haven't got the busiest week in the world, but I have got quite a few meetings. And, you know, my colleagues have quite a few meetings as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set a meeting with Nathan. Nathan and I work in the same team, so we need to have quite a few meetings together. And so if I just open Nathan's calendar, actually maybe we'll just go with one that's already here. Let's go with Pancash's calendar. So Pancash is our IT manager, and again we work quite closely together on a number of things. Now what you can see here is my calendar. You can see it indicated up here is highlighted in blue. You can see that Pancash's calendar is highlighted in green. So I can see here all of the appointments that Pancash and I have for the week. And so for me, that means I can even see when he's got squash training. For me, that means that I can set an appointment with Pancash knowing from the start that he's available at that time. You know, there might be an appointment that he's forgotten about or something like that, but it makes it so much easier to set a meeting. And now I can click in on my 1 p.m. time slot on Friday, and I can enter all my information in. Now, that's really useful for setting meetings with colleagues, but the one thing that I get feedback from time and time again is assets. So let's say I don't want to meet with Pancash. He's got enough meetings. But I do want to have a meeting in the meeting room. So we have one big meeting room at Connecting Up, and we have a small room out the back where we can have small video conferences and things like that. So I can see here if I want to access the meeting room, which is an asset, there are a couple of time slots here where it's shown as busy. but in general it's pretty free. So it means that all of a sudden, if I book out that meeting room, when my colleagues go to book the meeting room, there's no conflict. They can see, all right, Ryan's already booked the meeting room. Now, I will either book my meeting at another time, or I will ask Ryan if he really needs the meeting room, and we can discuss that. Now, you can take this concept and you can apply it to whatever you need to. So I've had examples of organizations that use it to book out data projectors. They use it to book out laptops. They use it to book out cars if they've got carpools. And so this just allows you as an organization to book your assets so much more efficiently. And it is, again, very easy. So if I go back to my 1 p.m. example that we were looking at before, so this is meeting in the meeting room. My location is meeting room. And I can add the room. Just checking my room lists. And you can see here the time I've picked, my rooms are free. So we've got the back room, we've got the meeting room, and the staff room is the lunch room. So I'm going to choose the meeting room, and what that does is it adds the meeting room as an attendee, just as if I'd invited Pancash or Mathan to the meeting. And then I can invite whoever else that I want, and I can book that meeting. And I will get a confirmation from the meeting room to say that's okay. If there are no other meetings in the meeting room at the time that I've booked it, I'll get an email back to say, meeting room has accepted your invitation. If there is another meeting on in the meeting room, I'll get an email back that says it's tentatively accepted, and I need to go and check why it's only tentative and who else might have booked it. So that can be part of your Office 365 setup. If you are already using Exchange, that is something that you can do now, but we find that a lot of organizations want to go into a bit more depth around that, so it's really useful. I've got people, so that's my contact book. I'll just go into OneDrive for a second, just show you a couple more things there. Yes, I want to leave this page. I want to send that invitation out. So again, here are my documents. I can choose which ones sync. I can add new ones. I can go to my webinar folder. And let's say I want to share this file. I can click the little menu button there, and I can click Share. Because we've got this great functionality of being able to collaboratively work on documents, so we should use it. So again, click on that, click Share. This is really easy. I'm going to invite Mathan. Hey, look, he's right there. I can click that. Hey, Mathan, can you please have a look at my slides for the webinar? Thank you. And I require sign-in. So for Mathan to be able to access this file, he needs to log into Office 365, which means I know that it's secure, okay? I know that it can't go out to anyone. It stays within my organization, so I can share that. And the great thing about these files on OneDrive is that they're on the organization's OneDrive. And Microsoft now offer an unlimited amount of storage space on OneDrive. So I just heard a bing, which means if I go back to Outlook, Microsoft send me an email to update me when I've sent an email out. You can see, hey Mathan, please have a look at my slides. So he gets that alert and he can go in there and he can edit the slides. But he can, if he's using the web version of Office 365, he can just click on that link and access it straight away in a web browser without worrying about anything. And there you go, Mathan's already replied saying, thanks, will do. So that's really good that he's got free time to do that straight away. Really appreciate it. And again, we can do the task management. So this is something that's been in Outlook for quite a while. But you can see here that you can turn emails into tasks. And here's an event we were at on Tuesday night. We can set those tasks. Now, Office 365 also includes SharePoint. I'm not really going to cover SharePoint today. It's a really big topic. What I would like to do with SharePoint is we've actually got another SharePoint webinar booked for 2 weeks' time, next week. And if you are interested in more information about SharePoint, I encourage you to go to that webinar. SharePoint can be massive, and that's what the sites icon and the newsfeed icons refer to in Office 365. You can set up team sites, you can set up lots of different things. So if you are interested in SharePoint, if you're currently using SharePoint and you want to know about migrating, or you want different tips and tricks around SharePoint, you can see here that we have started to set up our SharePoint, but it can be a big project depending on how much data you've got to move over. And that's the thing that we say to organizations that are looking at Office 365. There is so much functionality here that can be so beneficial to so many organizations, but you don't have to use all of it. You might choose to use Office 365 just for email or email and calendar, and you might choose to use your existing file server for all document storage and your existing versions of Office for all of your document editing. You can do that, that's fine. You might choose to use OneDrive for file storage, but you don't like editing in Office Online. You can do that. There's a sync tool for OneDrive that allows you to sync the tools to your hard drive and just access them through a folder, which is a great tool to have if you travel a lot and you work on planes. You've got that copy backed up on your computer that you can work with while you're on the flight. So you don't have to use SharePoint if you don't want to. You don't have to use OneDrive if you don't want to, but Microsoft are making them available for free. That unlimited storage space is really useful for a lot of organizations, so I think it's really beneficial to have a look at it. So what we might do, we've got a lot of time left, which is great, and we've got a lot of questions. So we'll go through some questions and we'll see what else we need to demonstrate. Go through some things.
Okay, so one of our first questions is, what would happen to the data if something happens to Microsoft?
That's a great question. I guess in terms of the data centers, everything's backed up redundantly in a number of locations. Microsoft have just opened the 2 new data centers, but they do back up the data. So I don't think the chances of that happening are very likely, but you do have the option to, you might choose to keep an internal server and sync down your OneDrive files for backups. There are a few different options around that, but I'm not sure that I would be too worried about something happening to Microsoft.
Okay, we are already set up with 365 T Suite. Can we just move over to E1 or E3?
No, if you're using Telstra, it's probably best to contact us externally, and we will chase that up with Microsoft for you.
How much capacity of storage for emails for each client?
Sorry, I didn't get that last part.
How much is capacity of storage for each client?
Okay, so storage with Office 365 is split into 3 different areas. One is your email, and you get 50 gigabytes of email storage. I've been with Connecting Up for just over 4 years, and I've got about 5 gig of emails stored up. So it's a lot of emails that you can store, and Microsoft have a really good habit of increasing their file storage as time goes on. I think it was 20 gig not very long ago, and now they've increased it to 50. The next one is your OneDrive. So each client gets unlimited file storage with OneDrive now. And again, in the last 2 years, I've seen that increase from about 100 gig to a terabyte are now unlimited. I don't think they can increase it beyond unlimited, but they might find a way. And the third storage is to do with SharePoint. So your combined organizational SharePoint, there is a formula that we can send out for calculating that, and I'm sure that Steph will go over that in more detail next week. But it's about 10 gigabytes of SharePoint storage plus 500 megabytes per user. So in general, for a typical user, you've got plenty of email storage and you've got plenty of file storage. It's just that SharePoint that, depending on how you're using your organizational shared files, how you structure that.
Do all the regular keyboard shortcuts that we use in Word work in the online versions?
All the ones I've tried have, yeah. Again, like I said, there might be some more advanced functionality that's missing from the web versions, but I encourage you to get in there and have a go. And if you find some random shortcut that's not working, you can always sync it down to the desktop and edit it there.
Okay. Is the Excel survey only available in E3 or E1 version?
No, all the plans that we talked about today come with Office Online, and it's a function in Office Online. So it'll work in E1 or E3, but it'll work in the small business plans as well.
Okay. And will all users have access to other people's information?
No, so you can send out the Excel Online form, and the people that fill out the form don't actually have access to the data in the back end. It's only the people who you grant access through OneDrive to those files that would have access to that. So in the example I had before, I could give Nathan access to the data that was coming in from the survey, but the people who anonymously get sent the form can't access any of that data that's in the survey.
Okay. Can we sync OneDrive with our own server?
Yeah, the easiest way to do that would be to set it up on your server as a user and download it that way. But yeah, there are ways to do that, and there are ways to sort of bridge them together with Active Directory so that you can sync all your passwords.
Okay. What about speed for our internet connection? New Zealand broadband is quite slow.
It's quite dependent on how much you use Office 365 for and how many users you have on Office 365. Now, one thing I haven't drilled into in very much detail today, because it's a bit hard to demonstrate over a webinar, is Microsoft Link, which is video conferencing. It's kind of like Skype for businesses, which is funny because it's about to be rebranded as Skype for Business. But it gives you video conferencing, and it gives you shared screens and a lot of other functionality to work with people who are off-site. If you're doing a lot of Link and you're using OneDrive quite a lot, then the amount of data that each person will use will be quite different to if you're just doing email. Our organisation, we've got about 16 people behind the one internet connection, and we're using 365, we're using OneDrive, things like that, and we use Skype a lot, and we have a 20 megabit symmetrical connection. So there are formulas, and this is something that will be covered in more detail in the implementation webinar in a couple of weeks' time. It's very dependent on what you're going to use and how many users are going to use it. But yeah, there are ways of planning that out in advance. The other thing is I've spoken to a couple of organisations that are really concerned about how much bandwidth they might use, but then when I ask them, it's like, well, what are you using for email now? Oh, we use Extra. Okay, so that's based in the cloud. What do you use for file storage? Oh, we use Dropbox. Okay, well that's similar to OneDrive. What do you use for, do you use video conferencing at all? Oh yes, we use Skype. And when you add all of those up and each user using them, and then you add, if your organisation is using Spotify or some kind of music streaming, then it all adds up to a very similar bandwidth load to what Office 365 would have, just that you're changing where the data is coming from.
How do you, oh sorry, do you have the option with the desktop apps to have the same functionality, i.e. multiple users on the same document at the same time?
Yeah, so you saw before when I opened that file in Word Online, I chose to then open it in Word on my desktop, and that was the desktop version of Word, and I could still see that Nathan was editing it, and I could still work with him on that file, and no problem. It does work slightly differently because if you were using the web version, it shows the edits as they're being made, whereas on the desktop version it locks out the paragraph to show what paragraph my colleagues are working on at the time. So there are minor differences, but yes, you can definitely work with multiple users at the same time.
Okay, is SharePoint a feature of 365 or something extra that needs to be turned on or set up?
It definitely needs to be set up, and Steph is going to go into a lot more detail about that next week, but it is included as part of the Office 365 donation.
Can you use Office 2007?
Depends on what you're trying to do. You can use Office 2007 Outlook to connect to Office 365 to get your email, but you're not going to get the file collaboration that you would otherwise get. You would be able to install the OneDrive sync tool separately and still edit the files, but you're not going to get the full functionality. If you were using Office 2007, I'd highly recommend upgrading to Office 2013. If you're using Office 2010, it's not quite as critical, but I would still look to move to the newer version at some point because there will be some little differences.
For a few more?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you use Outlook on your desktop and through Microsoft 365?
Absolutely, and every member of staff at Connecting Up, bar one, exclusively use the desktop Outlook client to connect to Office 365 to do all of their email and calendaring. The one person who doesn't is on a Mac and prefers the web client to Outlook for Mac, so it works away just like that. So to give you an idea, we switched over to Office 365 a few months ago, and basically once the switchover was done overnight, everybody turned up into the office. We'd been using Outlook for years, connecting to an internal Exchange server. When everybody turned up, there was a one-line change made to the configuration in everyone's Outlook, and all of a sudden they had access to their emails on Office 365. So from a user point of view, solely doing email, most users didn't even notice the difference because they were still using exactly the same program they were using before to access their emails. All their emails were there, all their calendars were there, just continued on like normal.
Can you, sorry, just bear with me. Can you integrate iCloud Calendar with Office 365?
Kind of is the simple answer. They're designed for different things. So what I would do if you were an iPhone user is there is a really good actually Outlook app that's just been released for iPhone, iPad, Android, and once you install that, you can access Exchange with your calendar and your email on your phone. Office 365 also integrates with the default mail app and the default calendar app on iPhones. So personally, I've got an iPhone and I sync my calendar only with my phone, and it works fine, and that way I can keep it within the default mail or the default Apple Calendar app, and I can see where all my meetings are coming up from. I probably wouldn't want to try and complicate things by going the other way and integrating iCloud because you're already getting the cloud functionality of Office 365 with the calendar.
For Link, is there a cost to use this, and do all attendees have to have had 365?
No, there's no cost to use it. It's included in Office 365. There is some more advanced stuff that you can do with Link that does cost a little bit extra. Like it's possible to replace your phone lines and a lot of things that we're not going to cover. But the basic functionality, video conferencing, you don't need to pay for, and you can have Link conversations with people who don't have Office 365. They can just log in as a guest. You give them a link, and they can click on it, and they can access it all through a web browser.
Okay, I'm looking for a way to do rosters which I can share with 7 staff. Could you use a shared calendar for this?
Yes. Yeah, so there'd be a few different ways that you could do that. It might be that you set up the 7 shared calendars and then allocate appointments to staff as required. It might be if you have one central calendar. What we do is we've got a marketing calendar that we use quite a bit, and it might be that we book in all of our marketing activities in the calendar and then invite, as part of those appointments, the relevant staff to that activity. So we have a central calendar that includes all of our activities, but then all of the staff that work in the marketing team have access to, in their own calendar, have access to the things that they're actually involved in. So there would be a few different ways of doing that, but you could definitely do that as part of Office 365.
What training resources are available for the transition to 365?
It kind of depends on how much training you're going to need. Depending on what your current environment is, you may need a lot, you may need a little. There are some great resources on YouTube. Microsoft have put together a really good YouTube channel on how to use Office 365. We are doing ongoing training around Office 365, and there is also the possibility of some more events in the future. It just depends on what your staff need training on. If they need training on basic use of Office 365, we just did an internal session just to show what the web functionality was. But it may be that you want to introduce it stage by stage. So you might choose to just bring in email, and hopefully all of your staff are already familiar with Outlook and accessing their email, so that wouldn't require any training. But then if you bring in OneDrive, you might want to do some quick training in OneDrive. And then if you bring in SharePoint's probably where you'll need to do a bit more training. It's probably something to look at in the next 2 webinars. We've sort of broken them up to give you just that.
Okay, thanks everyone for your questions. I think we've got time for about 2 more questions. Is there any chance to back up my files in the cloud?
To back up your files to the cloud, or to back up the files that you've got in the cloud on your computer? Because you can do both, and that's where that OneDrive for Business Sync tool comes in handy. So the OneDrive for Business Sync tool, the files that are up in the cloud, you can drag down to your desktop and it stores a local copy of them. If you've got the files on your computer, then you've effectively got a backup of what's on the cloud. So you get both.
Okay, and are there maximum numbers for link conferencing?
There is some bandwidth limitations when you get into big conversations with lots of users and lots of high definition video, but in general, no, it can be hundreds.
Okay, well thank you very much Ryan for the presentation. Unfortunately we can't get to every question. We will be sending an email to everyone with a link to the recording as well as a link to a feedback form for today's webinar. We really appreciate it if you can complete this form, as your feedback is valuable and will help us deliver events that are relevant to you in the future. And don't forget to check out the website for further information on upcoming events. And thank you for participating, and enjoy the rest of your day.